I went camping alone a few years back, choosing a quiet spot by a lake. Life had been pretty busy, and I wanted some time away just to breathe, relax, and enjoy nature. This lake was perfect, miles away from any road, deep in the forest. When I got there, it was everything I'd hoped for, peaceful, with not a single person in sight. I arrived around noon, set up my tent, and then spent the afternoon fishing by the shore. The calm water, the trees swaying in the breeze, the distant bird calls. It was so quiet, so serene. It felt like the world outside just didn't exist for a while. As the sun started setting, I built a small fire. It was starting to get dark, so I made a quick dinner and sat by the fire, listening to the crackling of the flames and the quiet sounds of the forest around me. After a while, feeling content, I decided to turn in for the night. Inside my tent, I settled in with a book, reading by flashlight. I remember feeling a deep calm, a kind of peacefulness that you don't get back home. The lake, the night air, the stars above, it all felt perfect. But around midnight, I heard something strange outside. At first, it was just a faint rustling, like leaves brushing against each other. I figured it was probably just a raccoon or some other small animal moving around. But then I started to hear footsteps. These were heavy, slow, and purposeful. I froze, my heart suddenly racing, as I tried to figure out what was out there. The footsteps got closer. And then, to my shock, I felt something or someone run their hand down the outside of my tent. I could actually feel the pressure of fingers brushing along the fabric, tracing the edge of my tent. I called out, hoping that maybe it was just another camper who'd gotten lost and stumbled on my sight. But there was no answer. The footsteps continued around my tent, circling slowly, as though someone was checking it out. I was breathing hard, trying to stay calm. I listened, hoping I was just imagining things, but the sounds were real. After a while, the footsteps stopped right by the entrance of my tent. I could hear a soft, steady breathing just outside. Whoever it was, they were standing inches from me, separated only by the thin fabric of my tent. I grabbed my flashlight, trying to decide what to do. My mind was racing. I finally worked up the courage, unzipped the tent as fast as I could, and shined my flashlight outside. But there was no one there. No footsteps, no breathing. Just the quiet forest, the dark trees, and the lake reflecting the moonlight. It was like whoever had been there had simply vanished into the night. I didn't sleep a single minute after that. Every time I thought I heard a sound, I would jump, my flashlight in hand, ready to shine it outside. But I saw nothing. Finally, as the first light of dawn broke, I packed up my things, barely stopping to eat. I wanted to be out of there as fast as possible. I hiked back to my car, glancing back now and then, feeling like someone might still be watching me. To this day, I still have no idea who or what was out there that night. It was just me, the lake, and someone or something that decided to pay me a visit. That's strange. Chilling night still crosses my mind sometimes, and I haven't been camping alone since. I've always enjoyed camping alone. There's something about being in nature, away from everyone, that makes me feel at peace. Last summer, I decided to do a solo camping trip. I found a remote spot deep in the woods, far from any road or trail. It took hours to hike there, but when I finally arrived, it felt like I was the only person in the world. The air was fresh, the trees were tall and quiet, and a small stream ran nearby. It was perfect. As night fell, I set up my tent and built a small campfire. I ate my dinner, listened to the sounds of nature, and watched the stars fill the sky. By midnight, the fire had died down, so I crawled into my tent, feeling calm and relaxed. The quiet sounds of crickets and rustling leaves lulled me to sleep. But around midnight, something woke me up. I heard a sound outside my tent, a soft crunching noise, like something stepping on dry leaves. At first, I thought it was an animal, maybe a deer or a raccoon. I stayed quiet, hoping it would go away. But instead of leaving, the sound grew louder. It wasn't just random crunching. It sounded like footsteps, slow, steady footsteps. My heart started pounding. I lay there, frozen, listening to the sound. Someone was walking around my tent, moving slowly, as if they were trying to be quiet but couldn't avoid making noise. The steps would stop for a few seconds, then start again, circling my tent. Whoever was out there wasn't in a hurry. They were taking their time, moving deliberately, as if they were trying to get a closer look at the tent. I reached for my flashlight, but stopped myself from turning it on. I didn't want whoever, or whatever, was out there to know I was awake. I tried to stay as still and silent as possible. Every sound seemed louder in the darkness. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears as I waited, listening. The footsteps continued, slow and steady, moving in circles around the tent. Every so often, they would stop, then start up again. The silence between each step felt even more terrifying. Whoever was out there seemed to be studying the tent, trying to figure out if anyone was inside. I felt a chill run down my spine. No one should be out here. I had hiked for hours, far from any road or trail. I hadn't seen a single person all day. Finally, after what felt like hours, the footsteps stopped. I held my breath, waiting, afraid to move. The silence felt heavy. I listened, hoping to hear footsteps walking away, but there was nothing. It was as if whoever had been out there had just vanished into thin air. I lay there, unable to sleep, too scared to even close my eyes. When the first light of dawn crept through the trees, I finally gathered the courage to unzip my tent. I crawled out slowly, looking around, half expecting to see someone standing there. But there was no one. The forest was empty and silent, just as it had been the day before. But then I saw the footprints. They were all around my tent, circling it in a tight loop. They weren't animal tracks. They were large, barefoot human footprints, pressed deep into the dirt and leaves. I felt my stomach twist. The tracks weren't mine. I had been inside my tent all night. I quickly packed up my gear, constantly glancing over my shoulder, feeling like I was being watched. The whole hike back, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was nearby, hiding just out of sight, watching me leave. To this day, I don't know who or what was out there that night. I've been camping many times since, but I haven't gone alone again. Some things are best left unknown, and I have no desire to find out who or what was circling my tent in the darkness. A few years ago, my friends and I planned a camping trip in the mountains. We wanted a spot away from the usual camping areas, somewhere deep in the woods where we could really feel alone in nature. We packed our gear and headed out early, hiking for hours up trails and through trees until we found a nice flat clearing. We set up our tents, gathered some firewood, and by sunset, we had a cozy fire crackling. As the night grew darker, we sat around the fire, roasting marshmallows, telling stories, and laughing. The stars were bright above us, and the forest around us was quiet. It was the perfect night, peaceful and calm. By 10 p.m., we were all feeling relaxed, staring into the flames, talking quietly. That's when one of my friends, Mike, pointed into the distance and said, "Look, there's another campfire." We all looked where he was pointing. Sure enough, far down the slope, there was a faint orange glow through the trees, flickering like firelight. We were surprised because we hadn't seen anyone else on the trail all day. We thought we were the only ones camping in this area. Curious, we decided to check it out. We thought it would be nice to meet other campers, maybe share some stories. Leaving our campfire burning, We grabbed a couple of flashlights and started down the hill. It looked like a short walk, and we thought we'd be back in no time. But as we walked, the light in the distance didn't seem to get any closer. Every time we thought we were nearing it, it would flicker a bit further away. We joked about it, saying the other campers were playing tricks on us, but after a while, it stopped being funny. We had been walking for nearly 20 minutes, and the light still looked as far away as when we started. We decided to turn back. When we turned around, we expected to see the glow of our own campfire, but there was nothing, just darkness. We stood there, confused, trying to figure out why we couldn't see our fire. We'd left it burning and hadn't gone far. But as we shone our flashlights around, we realized we had no idea where we were. We were surrounded by thick trees, and everything looked the same. Suddenly, the forest felt different. It was completely silent, like the trees themselves were holding their breath. No rustling, no animal sounds, just an eerie, heavy quiet. We called out to each other, trying to stay close, but a nervous feeling began to creep over us. We all felt it, like we were being watched, though we couldn't see anyone. In that strange silence, we stumbled around, hoping to catch a glimpse of our campsite. After what felt like forever, we finally saw a faint glow through the trees. Relieved, we hurried toward it, hoping it was our campfire. When we got back to the campsite, our fire was nothing but cold ashes. It looked like it had been out for hours, yet we'd only been gone for a short time. We didn't know what to say to each other. No one could explain what had happened, why the fire had gone out, or where the strange light in the distance had come from. We were too shaken to stay, so we packed up in silence, using our flashlights to guide us back down the mountain in the middle of the night. Since that night, we've talked about it many times, each trying to come up with a reason or explanation. Maybe it was just another camper's fire that somehow tricked us, or maybe we got turned around in the dark. But deep down, I think we all know there was something strange about that night, something we can't explain. I haven't gone back to that mountain since, and I'm not sure I ever want to. Sometimes, I wonder if there's something in those woods, something that watches from the dark, waiting for curious campers to follow a mysterious light into the trees.